This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to What the Health, an independent approach to your health span. Have you noticed how our healthcare system may not have your best interest in mind? Join Dr. Eckel in this fun and sometimes disturbing exploration of the state of healthcare and what it means for you. Now, here's your host, Dr. Eckel.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Greg Eckel, and this is What the Health. Our topic today is movement and brain health, and I want to introduce you to my guest, Terry Hodgkinson, C.R.M.T, NLP, C.R.M.T. We are going to find out about this alphabet soup after your name, sir. He's having lived a monk's lifestyle early on in life. Terry mastered the traditional martial arts style at an early age before venturing on and training in multiple martial and healing arts as he traveled around the globe. He's mastered in Reiki Trainer, Mindfulness Master, Life Coach, Hypnotherapy, NLP Trainer, Medical Qigong Tai Chi, and Master Educator in Kung Fu, martial arts, and a meditation system. So which he founded from his 40 years of training experience. He's coming at us from Toronto, Canada, and has been affiliated with the Brain Tap operation as kind of the guru to the north here. Welcome aboard, Terry.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Indeed. I am really looking forward to our conversation. You know, one of the reasons why I created this platform, as I mentioned before we got on the air, is I called it What the Health. And, you know, I love that we called this movement and not exercise. Movement is a much kinder word for everybody. And exercise is kind of that 4-letter word of that we don't ever do. So I'm really excited to hear on your background and how you've evolved and what you are up to with your centers. You're doing international retreats and all kinds of meditation, mindfulness, and Qigong, Kung Fu, etc. So, I just want to ask you, you piqued my interest on having lived a monk's life early on in life. What give us that story.
Okay. Well, let me backtrack to your introduction first, because yes. When you said Kung Fu, martial arts and meditation, it's actually Chung Fu.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason it's called that is because I've studied in multiple martial arts. So it's not just Kung Fu, but I've done Kung Fu, karate, jiu-jitsu. I've done Qigong. I've done Tai Chi. So there's many different disciplines in martial arts that I've studied over 40 years. And Chung Fu actually comes from a symbol in an ancient philosophy book called the I Ching, which about 5,000 years ago was written in China. And the Chung Fu symbol basically represents what's called inner truth. Mm-hmm. So I've called my martial art system Finding Your Inner Truth, whatever that might mean for you.
I love that. What is it? If you could I'll look up the symbol, but that's really awesome. Whatever works for you. I love that. And it seems like, we do have those internal answers, just checking in with our own royalty on making decisions. It's coming to experts such as yourself for the right information and counsel to then filter it through our eminence here and then acting on it.
Absolutely.
I love that. We are totally aligned in that philosophy. And I'm really excited. So, okay. The other thing that I mentioned was the alphabet soup. So we've got the CH, which is what does that stand for?
That's a certified master hypnotherapist.
Okay. And the MPNLP, that's the certified master hypnotherapist?
Neuro-linguistic programming, yes.
Perfect. And then the C.R.M.T.
That's for Reiki, master teacher in Reiki.
Awesome. Yeah. So all, I have been saying for some time now that the future of medicine is really in frequency and resonance and light, and you seem to be full on tuned into that, actually dedicated your life to those pursuits. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Great. I can answer your question, by the way, because you had asked this monk lifestyle type thing.
Yes.
So yeah, what happened was I got into martial arts very early in life. I started when I was 12 years old. And I did judo first for a couple of years. And then I transferred over to Kung Fu, which was a blend of Kung Fu and Kempo Karate. And I took to it so well that by the age of 16, for my summer vacations in school, I was living in the instructor's residence for the whole summer. And all I did was eat, sleep, breathe, train, martial arts, meditation, for the whole 2 months that I was on vacation for the summer school vacation. And that went on for a few years. And then when I finished grade 12, I was given the opportunity to partake in a full-fledged apprenticeship program that would lead to mastership in this particular system. And so I took it up. And so basically everything I did for a number of years, probably 7 years, was eat, sleep, train, meditate, and teach and repeat all over again every single day. There are family pictures of my family where I'm missing in the pictures because I was away doing something else. So
wow.
That's why I say it was like a monk, because that's all I ever did. There was nothing else in my life but doing that. And that's where that comes from.
What was that age group, the range for the 7 years?
I started edging into it at 16, and I came out of it around 24, 25 years old when I ventured out into my own and opened up my own martial arts school.
Sure. And did you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, all the partying I missed when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I made up for in my later 20s because I didn't know what that was all about. Now I'm done with it.
Good. I think it's actually important to really get those inner teenage rebel years out, whether it happens when you're a teen or later. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. What did you know when you got into that? How did you know, this is the thing? I've got to pursue this. That's pretty young to really follow your heart and intuition,
Well, I knew because it changed my life. I came from a dysfunctional family. My father was a very abusive and violent alcoholic. My mother, she was pretty much, just a shadow of herself. Mm. And my sister had moved out when she was young, and she's 6 years older than I was. So I took the brunt of my father's aggression, and I stood in between him and my mother many times. And what happened was when I started martial arts, it was for self-defense. And I was a very lost teenager, a kid. I was doing a lot of drugs, doing unlawful things as a rebellious, angry, frustrated, no self-esteem, no confidence teenager would do. I was following a pack that were trouble. Mm. Well, martial arts changed that for me. First of all, the discipline of the movement gave me some confidence. It started to build my confidence. The meditation helped me to control my emotions and my thoughts. So I wasn't triggered by my father's actions anymore. Mm. And the deeper I went into meditation, the more I realized what my father had was a sickness.
Yeah.
And it was something that needed to be attended to if he wanted to have it attended to. Unfortunately, he never did. He died of it. But it changed my life so profoundly and how I was around my family and other people that it was just something I knew I wanted to do, and I wanted to learn and absorb as much as I could so I could have that to offer to other people as well.
Oh, that is awesome. And, oftentimes these are those personal stories that shape our lives is really our life's purpose. So it's great that you found it so early there and gave you such solace. And now inspiration for so many more. How long have you had the center in Toronto?
Well, off and on over the last, 20 years, I guess, I've had a number of different martial arts schools. This one that I have now that I opened up has been about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then this wellness center, I also have a wellness center here in Toronto. And that wellness center has been going for 21 years now.
Wow. Lovely. That is how long I've had my clinic here in Portland, Oregon.
Awesome.
So we have some like early 20 somethings here as these entities, right?
Yeah.
So that is to be applauded, because not everybody is able to maintain a space for that long and have it continually grow and support the community. So kudos to you on that front.
Thank you.
So how on this component, I found you on the Better Brain Summit, and, really looking at this movement, how does movement increase brain health is our beginning conversation. And I'm excited to see where we go with this. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I really love to start off from my own personal experience.
Love it.
Because at the time that I was having this experience, I did not have the science behind it. I just had what intuitively was working for me. In school, because of my problems at home and because of my rebellious nature early on, I did not do very well in school. But when I joined martial arts and I started the apprenticeship program, my master instructor said, "How you doing in school, by the way?" And I kind of looked at him sheepishly and I said, "Well, really, if I'm passing, it would be a miracle." And he says, "Okay, that's going to change, because we need you to do well in school. Otherwise, you're going to have a conflict with your parents in training here, and we can't have that. So you got to pick up your marks." Mm-hmm. Well, that was the first time that I really respected somebody who said, "Okay, you got to start doing something here. So apply yourself." Well, I still had the same problem, which was I had some attention deficit issues. And a lot of it was caused from the way I was brought up, but a lot of it was caused from my trauma and just laziness. Mm-hmm. So when I was sat down to do an assignment or study for an exam or something, I would, after 20 minutes, I would just blank out. My mind would wander. I would get restless. I would get frustrated. What I learned to do was get up and train some martial arts for 20 minutes to half an hour. And as I started moving and doing this, when I sat down after that period of time of training, everything became crystal clear. That frustration, the aggravation, the fogginess in my brain disappeared. And I was able for about an hour and a half, really focus on studying and getting things done, actually making progress. And then when I started to feel that come on again, I would get up and I would train again, move my body, and I would sit back down, and it was just like there again. I would be crystal clear. I would have the energy. I would have the focus, the discipline. So I had to do that as a survival mechanism to get done what my teacher told me to do in martial arts, which was pick up my grades. Well, I went from failing grades to high 90s in my last 2 years of high school because I applied myself and I used movement to help my brain function better. So right then and there, I knew I was on to something. I didn't know that it could work for everybody because I wasn't really concerned about everybody else. I was concerned about myself at that period in time. And I realized if I did this, it's going to make a difference to not only my body, but my brain as well.
Wow. That is awesome. So that road has served you very well. So when did you tie that into helping others?
Yes. Yeah. So, for me, later researching why is that effective? And there are a number of scientists out there that are releasing new studies and information on, if you look at our evolution, there are really three things that go hand in hand, and it's movement, it's the ability to find food, and the ability to strategize. And these are the three things that have developed between our mind, body, and our brain, which is part of the mind, but basically over millions of years. If you take any one of those things out of the equation, you're going to start slacking off. You're going to start, your brain, and they're starting to look at this now. If it's not being used the way that it was meant to be used over millions of years, it actually starts to shrivel. It gets smaller over time rather than larger. And, if we look at, as an example, the koala bear, back in its history, before it really found, the eucalyptus leaves to munch on, it had a larger brain. But because eucalyptus leaves were so available in its environment, it slowed down, didn't need to move as fast. And so therefore its brain shrank over the years because it wasn't being used as much. So I find that movement, the ability, now the food issue isn't an issue in our modern day society because we can pick up food from any store, but over our evolution, we had to run after food. We had to chase food. We had to go out and farm food, or we had to pick it from high trees or do different things. And we had to strategize. How do we get that? How do we get this? So the thinking led to a larger brain, and the movement led to releasing hormones through our body, which are now being discovered through proteins, factors, that actually increase neurogenesis, which actually increase neuroplasticity, and a whole host of other great things in our brain. So this is why I say movement and brain, they go hand in hand.
That's awesome. Are you involved with some of that research, or is that just coming through like what you disseminate in the clinic or with your involvement with BrainTap?
Most of it is dissemination from what I've researched myself, but also through Dr. Patrick Porter, who's the inventor of the BrainTap. He has a number of people that he works with on research. And we do some of that research. I follow some of their research and discuss it with them. And there's also other great doctors out there. Dr. John Reiki, who wrote the book called Spark. And if that's a book that hasn't been read, I highly recommend it, because that's got really updated research in relation to what I'm speaking of.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Any resources like that? I have, our viewers, listeners of What the Health, we've got lay public and people that are really motivated for their health, biohackers, and we also have practitioners and providers that watch our show. So whatever level that comes out, again, like our intention before the show for the highest, greatest good, we'll get it out there.
Great.
So super appreciate that. So what, have you seen any new exciting research on that front or older ones that are really sticking out for you, that you would want to share at this moment?
Yeah, the research that I'm looking at right now is obviously, everybody, I think most people should know this by now, that we never stop creating synaptic connections in our brain. At one point, they thought that when we reached a certain age, our brain started to shrivel and die because, we didn't have that youth, the fountain of youth thing going for us. But that's turned upside down now. And they realize that as long as you're doing certain things to keep your brain healthy, then you can actually slow down the aging process. And what I mean by that is having the brain deteriorate through synaptic connections and building new neuronal connections. Usually when we're not using our brain, these things with age start to deteriorate, and with life environment conditions such as stress or, all these other things that can impact this. But the research that I'm really involved in right now is that we can actually maintain our youth in our brain as well as our body if we get our body moving and we strategize, whether it's doing, crossword puzzles or different activities to keep the brain sharp so it's always, working on strategies, or whether it's taking up a new sport, even a martial art or something that makes you think. It helps you to, how do I do this? I gotta, I'm getting movement in, but at the same time, I have to strategize how it's done. Martial arts is a great example for that, because you have to learn these moves, but you also have to be able to apply them, and they're not very easy all the time. So you have to really work at it. This challenges the brain. The brain was really meant to be challenged. And I've often said, if you think school stops when you're finished high school, college, or university, then you definitely are on the wrong track, because you're just starting. And you've got to keep learning, learn more, do something every day that is helping you to go, oh, wow, yeah. If you're not having those aha moments, then you're not doing yourself justice for your whole being, but especially for your brain.
Yeah, that whole curriculum of lifelong learning, I think, is something to just really embrace and put into action, because it is, in this holofractal universe that we find ourselves in, it is so fascinating, on whether it be from like sacred geometry to looking at our universe and solar system to, what are those questions at the center of the universe? There's this whole component with quantum physics that I've been really geeking out on lately, but how to apply that in medicine. Those are some of the things that I've been pursuing just in my fun spare time, right? It's like, right. Oh, Dr. Greg, what are you doing? It's like, well, no, these have implications in medicine. And And so it is such a fun thing to instill that in my kids and in my patients. And I think, hearing it from another person on the planet, that's sage advice there. And what we're seeing, what you're sharing out of the research shows that increases neuroplasticity. I recently had a patient come in talking about like her providers. She said, well, it's been so long since this stroke, and my doctor said that the nerves are dead and they're not coming back. And I'm like, wow, that is such damaging words coming from a provider and a professional to a patient, in that one, that it's false and incorrect. And two, it's such a disservice to the power and the ability of what we're seeing of our body's ability to heal. I always like to say I credit Superman, right, for his ability to show us. It was really up to that point in time where Christopher Reeves had his neck injury, where he wasn't ever supposed to walk again. And before that time, the neurologist said, oh yeah, neuroplasticity, they're not coming back. And he proved everybody wrong, which then made our mind say, well, wait a minute, our limiting belief is not allowing a new reality to occur here. And with him being able to do that, we are living at an amazing time, right? For all research, science, our living, etc. And to have then clinicians, wellness center owners, researchers, individual people out there watching to really get behind this, we can really start accelerating even more change in consciousness and our abilities. I like to say we haven't even been taught yet on what these things are capable of doing,
Agreed.
So that's awesome. So that's on the plasticity. So will you talk a little bit more into that strategic movement for brain plasticity?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, strategic movement is being able to challenge your brain in an activity. So whether it's martial arts, whether it's dance, maybe you want to learn how to dance, ballroom dance, or do the tango. For you to be able to do it, you have to learn how it's done. And at the same time, you're moving, you're getting some exercise. So these things go hand in hand in our evolution. When we move and when we exercise, whether you want to call it exercise or body movement, but when we're doing something that gets our heart rate up, it's important to do something aerobically. And I would say a minimum of about 30 minutes, I try to do it every day, but even if you did it 4 to 5 times a day, that would be still a benefit. There's some studies out that say, even if you were to do it 2 to 3 times a week, that would be at least something towards improving your whole health, your brain health as well. Personally, I like to do it, 5-6 times a week where I'm exercising, I'm doing something aerobically, 30 minutes, but also it's not just the running factor. Maybe people like to run. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's the challenge factor of getting your brain to think. So this is why I say, learn something new while you're exercising. I've taken up a number of different sports over the years because I felt like my body movement when I was exercising wasn't challenging enough. So I would go and I'd learn basketball. I'd go and I'd learn baseball, volleyball, hiking, like rock climbing, all these different things where not only was I exercising and getting the heart pumping, but I was challenging the brain to figure out new neural pathways on how this is actually going to be accomplished. And the brain likes that. The brain likes to be challenged. So either you're challenging it or you're not.
Yeah.
If you're challenging it, your brain is staying healthy and is keeping that health regime going forward because it knows what to do. If you're not challenging it, your brain is slipping backwards because it's not being used in the way that it was meant to be used.
Interesting. Yeah. So are there ways, I can imagine a listener viewer saying, that sounds good, but I'm older and I'm afraid of being injured. I think a lot of times, like we kind of get to that tipping point of, well, I haven't used the body so much. I maybe have some fear of falling, or, viewers, listeners that are, curious about their parents because they're, when we look at the stats for mild cognitive impairment and dementia and Alzheimer's, they're staggering and not in a good way. And so this is, I see a lot of patients where it's their concern, like, oh, I'm worried about dementia, developing dementia. And so if we speak into that group of people, do you have some kind of like simple ways to kind of get them off the couch, so to speak, and moving?
What I've discovered with my own clients and students is a lot of people, if they haven't exercised, it's not something that currently is in their regime of doing, the way they do things, that it can be difficult to get the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes it's better to call up a friend or have a friend who will do something with you. Sometimes it's good to join a group exercise, whether it's volleyball or something. For people who are worried about falling or hurting themselves, start off with something slow. It doesn't have to be full blown out, marathons. Start out with some Qigong exercises. That alone, the Qigong exercises will get your heart moving, pumping, and there's added stretching and there's added deep breathing involved. And that's a great way to start out for someone who really hasn't exercised a lot in the past, but will be able to reap the rewards and the benefits by doing something like Qigong, because they're not in great shape. Just doing those exercises will do wonders for the body and the brain. If you want something a little bit more challenging but still stable, advance to Tai Chi. Tai Chi that will challenge your brain for sure. Qigong is more just individual movements over and over and over. So you don't have to think too much once you learn them. Where Tai Chi is one move into another move, into another move, into another move, but it's done slowly. Yet at the same time, because your stances are fairly low and you're stretching and you're moving, this also provides your heart to beat faster into, a semi-aerobic state, especially if you haven't exercised before. And the lower you get in your stances, the faster your heart beats. So this is another great, while you're still doing it slow, so you can be assured of better stability than doing something like playing a sport like volleyball, or where maybe it's not, you're not stationary like Qigong or Tai Chi or yoga or something. But again, the thing is, you got to get started. So get with a friend, make a pact with a friend, join at a community center or some organized system of doing something, so that you're committed to going once, twice, 3 times or whatever a week, and you know that it's going to do good for you by staying committed to it.
Nice. Great recommendations. So that's on the movement front, and you had said learning something new while moving. So it's either in the whole behavior and the movement in and of itself, you haven't moved your body that way. Or is it also like, if somebody loves running on a treadmill, is it like learning something new while exercising? Is that?
No, yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend reading a book while you're running on a treadmill. It might be a little dangerous.
Yes. Could be listening to Audible.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah, for sure. I think that's okay. But I think also it's learning while you're moving and learning what the movement has to teach you. This is sort of the emphasis is, okay, you're moving, but how do you incorporate that movement into also strategizing your next move while you're moving? So again, this is why sports is helpful too, is because you're thinking about strategy while you're playing sports to some degree, or Tai Chi or these other things. That's more of the emphasis that I'm talking about. It seems to be our evolution is married together between the brain and the body in relation to movement, but also strategizing where you need to place your arms, where you need to place your legs, how you need to coordinate your balance and your, all the wonderful principles that go along with body movement.
Got it. Yeah. That proprioception and place in space, oftentimes what happens is as people are aging, it looks like they're getting stiffer and stiffer and more tentative in their movements, and really you're right. The information is in the movement. It sends the signals in different areas of the brain to really light that up and keep it alive and growing. The old statement of, energy flows where attention goes, really comes to mind with that kind of conversation. All right, well, let's tie in on the second part of our interview today around this component of the monkdom in your beginning formative years, and how mindfulness helps with the brain health. And maybe this is the tie-in and discussion of how you got involved with BrainTap and what you're seeing with that technology.
Sure. Yeah. Mindfulness is a quality of meditation. So it comes from a derivative. If you've done meditation, you can develop mindfulness, but it's kind of a category of meditation that in the West here, by certain people like John Kabat-Zinn, has been disassociated with meditation so that they could bring it into our arena in North America and say, well, it's really not connected to any philosophy or religion or anything like that you can do it on its own, but it's still meditation.
Yeah.
And the idea of that was when I was meditating in my teenage years, and my mind, I call it the monkey mind. Your mind is here, there, jumping over there. Now it's over here. Now it's over there. It took me a long time before I could appreciate meditation. It took me a long time before I could even like meditation. Because when my teacher said, "You ready for class?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Sit down, cross your legs, keep your back straight, breathe low, and shut up." What? Yeah, that's right. Shut up. Sit down. Do it. And we had to meditate for a period of time, usually only 10 minutes, but 10 minutes as a teenager who wants to get up, kick, and punch seems like, 10 hours.
Eternity,
Because,
right?
your energy is just bursting.
Yeah.
Well, time and time again, when I was told I had to do this, I finally came to accept it and said, well, okay, let's get this out of the way. But just doing it, not even liking it, but just doing it started to have a transformative effect on my mind. And I started to realize that even in class, I was much more calmer. And then eventually it led to mindfulness. And what happened was I was able to be in that calm state and notice what was happening, whether it was from inside of me or whether it was from outside of me. Sometimes inside of me, these thoughts would come up into the theater of my mind and say, hey, look at this. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about what you're getting for lunch after class today? Or, hey, don't forget, you got to go out Saturday and do this. And so these would come up. Or I would see something outside and it would, reverberate and make me think about things on the inside. Mm-hmm. What mindfulness does, which comes from the discipline of meditation, is that it allows you to be centered. Stay centered. And when something enters your peripheral or something enters your theater of your mind, you are able to observe it without reaction, mm-hmm. or without judgment or without criticism. You just sort of, oh yeah, mm-hmm, right, okay. And then you can place it wherever you want to place it. If you want to keep it in the forefront of your attention and say, yeah, I need to deal with that. Obviously, if it's a danger, you need to deal with it pretty fast. And that's, what martial arts teaches you when you're getting struck, kick, punch, whatever. You don't sit there and think about it. Move, get out of the way, block, evade, avoid, whatever. Mm-hmm. But in real life, the stressors that we have come in many different forms, as you know. It might be the flat tire that you got. It might be your son's challenges at school. It could be one of 1,000 things in a day. These stressors are not always worth spending your total mental, emotional energy on. So it's good to be able to observe them and say, yeah, I know you're there. I'm going to get around to dealing with you. But right now, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing that I can do to, fix that or to work with it. So I'm going to leave you here and I'm going to go on with being peaceful and centered and deal with it when the time comes to deal with that, rather than having it take up your total frame of attention and lose all that energy because of reverberating. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And you just feel depleted in your energy. So that's what mindfulness is capable of doing. And I found in my own personal experience with my home challenges, and then as I grew older with my own life challenges as well.
Wow. Yeah. In that aspect, that kind of reactivity without even the pause, I think gets us a lot of us in trouble. And we don't even notice that, or even have never been taught that, we actually don't need to react to everything coming in on us, because it's not all of it is life threatening. And so being able to just objectively say, there's another cloud in the sky, and allowing it just to pass through, rather than attaching and then having the flood of emotions and then all of the biochemical responses to the item. I talked to a lot of executives and high performing type A individuals and personalities. And when I bring up mindfulness or meditation, the picture is you're sitting cross-legged in lotus and not moving, similar to what your teacher did to you before you started. But
Right.
That's not the only way of mindfulness or meditation.
There are many different methods or techniques that you can utilize in meditation that can lead to mindfulness. One of them is as simple as a walk through a natural environment where you're walking, at a good pace, but instead of thinking about everything, you're just noticing what's around you. So you notice the bird on the tree, you notice the cloud in the sky, and you're not detached necessarily from it because you're still noticing it, but at the same time, you're not necessarily allowing your emotions to take over. So it's the ability to observe without reaction, unless after you've made the observation that you want to react to that. But the idea is to be able to put that pause in there so that you can look at all the other possibilities around that event or that circumstance or whatever it is that you're observing, instead of being locked into one knee-jerk response. Rather than, okay, here's the typical thing that I would usually do. I'm going to do it because I'm hardwired to respond this way. Mindfulness, which can be done through a walk in the park, it can be done through Tai Chi, it can be done through running. A sport is all about maintaining your center while you're observing everything that's taking place in your present moment.
Love it. So maintaining our center in the present moment with the training of mindfulness, it's like a muscle or going to the gym. You've got to actually practice this stuff, right?
Perfect. Yeah, no, you said it. The mind is a muscle. And if we use it to the right aim, then we can build the muscles in the right areas. A lot of people, a lot of the clients that come to me in my wellness center, they've used that muscle for the things that they don't want. That's why they're so good at them. Whether it's they've got excessive weight on, or they're smokers and they want to quit, or they gamble, or there's a sex addiction, or there's a drug addiction, or there's there's many different reasons. But when they come in and they say, oh, I'm having a horrible life, I'm so broken, and they tell me their story, the first thing that I say to them is, well, congratulations. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, your mind's working perfectly. Well, how's it working perfectly? I said, because you focused on this one thing so much that now you've mastered it.
Yeah.
So would you like to master something differently now? Well, yeah, that's why I'm here. I said, well, you've taken the first step. Now it's about changing your focus. Now it's about changing how you react to these old triggers in your life. And part of that is going to be through the learning of mindfulness. And so this is, because everybody thinks, oh, I'm broken or I'm defunct, I'm deviate, I'm a deviant, or no, we train our minds for a result. Sometimes the results that we find out later down the road aren't exactly what we want in the present moment. We need to now train our mind differently to create a different result.
I love that. It's as, the powerful manifesting generator up here that will give you exactly what you need. And everybody has that evidence of this is how life is. And I'm gripping on that paper as hard as I can, because I can give you a gazillion reasons as to why life is like this. And then you kind of help give them another pair of glasses to say, well, now you can't even read the words on the paper because you're now gripping this paper over here to say, this is the way that I want it to be. I love, I think where we're going in science and that discussion is around this kind of quantum understanding of what reality is. And I'm going to bring that into our conversation here just because I think it's an interesting adjunct into our discussion of, this time-space continuum that we find ourselves on. And is it possible to have your future self? Sometimes I will tell my patients to say, or to really ask their future selves. You know, I always say, well, your future self, the future Greg, will thank you when you get there, when you're doing this heavy lifting today, right? But having that conversation as if the time component doesn't really exist, because in reality, I mean, you know, we're here for a short period and then we move on. So I'm wondering if do you tie any of that into your training, that component with some of the new science coming out around quantum space, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a long time ago when I was studying to become a master in NLP, I learned a technique called timeline therapy. And this particular technique would take you out of your present timeline. So people who were having a challenge with some habit that they wanted to overcome, and we would literally float them above it and take them to meet their future self and say, in your future self, do you have these issues? And if they said no, then they said, great. So all we have to do is place these things between your future self and just follow them out. And if they said, yes, my future self does, then we'd ask them what needs to take place so that instead of that ramification of that, your future self, we can create a whole new timeline.
Nice.
And then we would get the answers to that, and we would place that in relation to what they were going to do each day from this day on to meet their future self. So absolutely, I think it's important to meet your future self and realize that the challenges you may have today are not necessarily the challenges that you're going to meet with your future self now.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, and sometimes I will go forward and ask my future self, like, how did you get here? To start making the changes today. And it goes back to what you named your healing center with the choices within. Like, it is all of those answers. Really, you don't have to go outside to find anything. It's really, like you're saying, you're just listening to your clients, either with a yes or no in the future of, is that behavior still happening? And they give you the answers as to how to make the changes to get them there, right?
Exactly. They already know at some level. It's just that, you know, many times when people get confused in their lives or you know, just bombarded with life, it's buried. You know, things have fallen down on the inner truth part, which is what I call Chung Fu, which is why my center is called Chung Fu, inner truth. And that inner truth is still there. It's always there. It can never disappear. But you got to pull off some of the stuff that's fallen on top of it so you can get to that inner truth and you see it clearly and you experience it clearly. So everything I do, I'm not doing really anything for anybody. I'm just helping them to find their inner truth.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like the garbage removal system. I just pull the things that are in the way of them being able to experience the truth for themselves and the benefits to that truth, and they find it. And that's what I look at as what my job was. Same as when I had to do it. I had guides that helped me to do that along the way, but I still had to be the one to pull the stuff off and say, oh yeah, now I know how to do this. Let me clear this out. Let me do some spring cleaning here. Oh, wow, look at this. Yeah. It's there all this time. I just, I forgot all about it. Yeah. And then I would go on from there with that realization, that understanding.
Love it. So that brings me to my next question is, how do we accelerate that for folks? So you have, I'm curious on how you put the brain technology, or how did you get involved? Because you said you've known Dr. Porter for 20 plus years. And
what happened was a friend of mine who was involved in martial arts. I was running a martial arts school, and my friend ran a martial arts school. And somehow he came across Dr. Porter in the States, and he says, "Oh, you gotta check out what this guy does. He has this system of doing things that helps you to get inside, into your deepest sense of self and start to figure out what you need to do to get on track with it." And I thought, "Oh, that's really interesting. That's what we do in meditation, in martial arts." And he said to me, he says, "Yeah, but how many people are we able to help?" And I said, "Well, those people that come in through our doors." He says, "How many people don't come in through our doors because they don't want to kick and punch?" Not everybody wants to kick and punch to be able to get the benefits of meditation or these other, modalities. And I said, "That is a really good point." And, if there's a way out there that we can help more people without them feeling that they have to learn how to kick and punch, then that would be definitely. So I started looking into Dr. Porter, and I had the opportunity to meet him 20 years ago, and we shared ideas. We sat down and we did this whole brainstorming thing, and he really liked what I was doing. And I really enjoyed his research and how he was developing these, many, many eons ago, the models of what are the brain tap today, but they were, sort of like, we're going back 8 or 9, I don't know, maybe even 11 prototype models now to compare to what it is today. Today it's on steroids, Yeah. But I understood it, and I thought, okay, I'm still going to do martial arts because that has a real, place in my whole history of who I am today. But I want to open a wellness center, and I want to offer these other modalities like brain tap, so that people can come into touch with this accelerated way of being able to pull the stuff off their inner truth and get focused on what's going to work for them, help them to lead better quality lives. For me, I feel that if we can do that for people, then automatically people are going to feel that they want to do it for other people, or at least recommend them or assist them somehow. And it's just, you start from you, and then you work in your immediate circle of influence, and then that works in the other parts of your community. And if we were all to take a leading respective edge on this at point, and perhaps we could influence enough people that we're going to have a better world. And I truly believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't continue to keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And it's just something that I know has to be done for me, because I get a lot of fulfillment out of it. So.
Likewise, totally aligned there as well, of those spheres of influence and having the right conversations at the right time and sharing. And, why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because, watching your interviews and seeing what you're up to, I wanted to share you with the What the Health listeners and followers here, because it is such an important component of taking care of ourselves. And really, one of my passions is, wanting to help 1 billion people on the planet achieve their creativity. And it's really tuning into this inner wisdom. But it's, on my part of it is clearing off the biochemical and physiologic and the pain, and really getting the body prepared for what then the mind is capable of, and then getting them primed for that to really take that forward. I find that we will have more love on the planet, and that's the world that I know, my heart knows and desires, is just that more beautiful planet that we can live on. So I think it's really noble work, and really well aligned, and finding you guys. Yeah.
Listening to you, it sounds like me. We're just working, from slightly different perspectives, but we're achieving, the same similar results. And I think we need more people like us doing what we're doing, and more people to learn it, so we can move forward with that.
And so that's a great pausing moment here of, if you all listening and viewing are getting as much out of this conversation as the two of us, please share this with loved ones. Think of 2 people that, hey, this might be an interesting conversation for them to hear, because that's how we do create the change that we know and desire here, is getting the word out and getting the right resources and having the right conversations. And maybe this doesn't resonate for you, but maybe it'll resonate for your aunt or your neighbor or your friend from high school or whoever it is. Think of them. Just press share up there and get this word out. And also, I always ask every week, if you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform, because it does make a difference. It helps you pick the shows that you're watching. And if you're enjoying this, please tell the world. Let them know what you got out of this episode, because there's so many different facets. I also like looking at the comments to see, well, what is resonating with you, so that we can bring in more folks and help really accelerate your growth on the planet and your health and your creativity and more love. Like, that's the world we all want to live in. So thank you. That was my public service announcement.
Just to add to that, because we're on that frame.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the power of the seed planted. And this is one thing that I've seen time and time again, where having students and teaching, somebody doesn't necessarily react on things in that moment, but the concept of you being able to share it with them, I've had people come back to me 5, 10, even 20 years later, and they contact me and they say, do you remember that time when you said da, 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 da in class? And I'm like,
yeah,
to be honest with you, it was a long time ago. Well, maybe you don't remember it, but let me tell you what that was able to do for me.
Yeah.
For a long time, I thought about that and I didn't take any action on it. But, I was at a point in my life where I needed to do something, and I took a little action on what you had said. And I have to tell you, I have to thank you that, it was really the thing that I needed at the time that I needed the most. So this is why I say, you might see people out there or know people out there that you think, oh, they're not going to benefit from this because they're not receptive to it, or they're not in the right state of mind. Don't judge them. Don't judge anybody. Just put it in front of them. Yeah. And let them, even if they hear it now and nothing comes of it for, a month or 6 months or a year or years later, doesn't mean that it won't impact their life in some positive way down the road.
So true. And, really trusting that intuitive component as to why you thought about them, and just taking action and getting into action, because those mini wins of action really do get us momentum in our own lives. And so it is, it's a great reminder, like the smiles do work,
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, coming down to the close of the show, is there a specific topic that we did not touch on today that you're like, aha, this would be perfect for What the Health viewers and listeners?
I think we covered the basics of what I really wanted to get across. And I know, in current times, we're just coming out of a pandemic. But however you want to look at that. But I do something that's called Tao Journeys Retreats, where I take people to other countries. I take them to the Taoist mountains in China, to the Himalayas in India, to the waterfalls in Bali. I don't do it for a vacation. I do it for an experience to get them out of what their normal everyday life is, where they don't have to be able to think about anything that they would normally think about on a daily basis, and transplant them in a totally new environment and have them observe their reactions to everything that they're experiencing during the time that they're on these particular excursions. I bring that up only because, not to promote what I'm doing, but to say, take a chance in life to do something different. If you've never done something different before, take a chance to do something different to a level that you've never done it before. Now, I don't know what that means for everybody, but I know that there are things that people can do that will get them outside of what they are normally experiencing. And of course, it's got to be safe, but at the same time, it has to be a bit adventurous. There has to be a little bit of adventure to it, so that it fires off new neurons, opens up new pathways, and allows the awareness to really open up and really pay attention to all these new things that are happening. New experiences are good because they help us to grow as individuals, and they also help to expand the power of our own brain.
I love it. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was curious on your retreats, and I like how you tied that into our discussion here. That I'm excited for the world to open up, and for your retreats to get going again. And absolutely, that encouragement, it made me think of when you said that, like, I really need to and my father out on a journey like that, if he's game,
Sure. Yeah.
At least to offer an option, or let him know I'm thinking about it with him, because it would be so fun to be able to take a trip with a family member that doesn't really travel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thank you for that. All right. So in closing remarks, are there any last parting insights, wisdom, or words that you would like to share with our audience?
I just want to say that I think it's really important that you gauge what's happening in your own mind's reality. And the reason I say that is because there's a tremendous amount of things going on in our world today. And if you get too attached to all the negativity that is taking place, it has an actual hormonal chemical effect in your body and in your mind. And it's not a healthy reaction if you're always feeding your mind, your brain, this information. So I know a lot of people in my sphere, my influence, that I say, turn the TV off, don't watch the news, 24/7, start doing some things that are going to shift your mindset. Read a good book, read something that you can learn from in a book, something that's positive. Go out for a walk, start exercising, just do something to change your reality, and watch as you do this. As you take the first few steps to lead, to make a difference, your body and your mind are also going to fall in suit. And then where you are now and where you can be at weeks from now, a month from now, half a year to a year from now are completely different, not just with your body, but with your mindset. And that is so really important. And I know a lot of people out there might be listening to me saying, oh yeah, sure, you've been doing it for years and it's so easy for you. No, actually, it wasn't easy for me when I started to do it. It was very difficult, but I learned how to enjoy it. And my clients and my students come from different ages and walks and backgrounds. And some of them have never done any of this stuff before in 40, 50 years. But once they get started and they get the ball rolling, it's amazing how things can change. You just got to have that glimmer, that little spark, that little flash that says anything is possible.
Oh, lovely. I'm going to let that land. Everybody, this was What the Health, Dr. Greg Eckel. We are here on the Contact Talk Radios Tuesdays, 2 to 3 Pacific time. Please get out there, share the good word, get out and take a walk. Go for a hike. There you go.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, Terry. So much fun.
Thank you. Been a pleasure. Thank you.